Are you a business owner or employee who needs to network but is terrified of walking into a room full of people you don't know? Are you afraid of being left out of conversations or being awkward in the conversations you do have? Your tour guide, Faithann, is here to walk alongside you through the networking terrain, offering tips and tricks to network with ease. She'll also bring insightful interviews with successful business owners who have used networking to expand their businesses. Building relationships is the heart of networking, and generosity is the cruise ship that will navigate you toward those important relationships for your business or career. Grab your sunscreen and suitcase. Faithann is ready. Are you?
Hello there, and welcome to the Networkers Tour Guide podcast. I'm your host, Faithann. I'm glad you found the show. Networking is providing opportunities for others that they would not have except for you, so that you have standing to ask for opportunities from those same people when you need them. How do we create opportunities for others, and how do we ask for those same opportunities? Well, that's what this podcast is all about. It's what I'm here for. Let's dive into episode 22. Listeners, this is the first episode in the series that I'm titling Meet the Experts. And this series is all about meeting experts as you network. So it's not just about us wanting to put our brand in front of others and wanting to offer invitations to others to work together, but also it's about finding good people to work with. And so I wanted Nikki Rausch to come on the podcast. Nikki, thank you for coming on the Networkers Tour Guide podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so delighted to be here with you.
I am a fangirl. You know that. When I first met you, and I've never met you in person, but I've met you online, I've been a fan instantly. I think you have great information about sales that many of us struggle with so much. And it really relates to networking. Your framework really ties networking in very well. So that's why I wanted to ask you on the podcast. So I met Nikki through the BNI, which stands for Business Networking International. They have their own platform for their members. It's a training platform that we can go on as a BNI member and take training in all kinds of things, networking related. There's even training on hiring people. And I was just perusing the platform and I saw your workshop or webinar, and it was called The Selling Staircase. And even this was years ago, and I even remember it to this day. I remember thinking, oh, a selling staircase. That kind of makes it easy because selling is such a huge thing. And so I clicked on it, and then I became immersed in your sales funnel. And now I am part of your Sales Maven Society, which you have. It's a private Facebook group and it's monthly coaching. And I've learned so much from you about that.
Thank you. I'm delighted to know that that is how we connected because that was one of those opportunities that came up. It was quite a few years ago now. And I remember having to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to
Really?
get ready for that training because it was so early with the time difference. And I remember
Okay.
thinking, do I want to do this? And I will say, thank goodness I did because you have been such a bright light in my life. And I'm so grateful to have you in the group and to know you and that's how we got connected.
Yeah, I'm same here. I'm delighted to be in the group because I feel like I can have some success. And I've actually been on your podcast twice. And one of the things that I learned from you, we're not going to talk about this time, but I would encourage you all, listeners, to go listen to Nikki Rausch's Sales Maven podcast because she has so much great information. But you really helped me with a great email marketing plan. And I had an offer through my other business, Window Cleaning Plus. And so I took your class and it worked magnificently. Knowing the right words to use and the approach to take when you email somebody, it makes all the difference. So go back and
It sure
listen.
does.
And then you invited me to talk about that experience on your podcast. So this time, what I'd like to invite you to talk about is your selling staircase because it has helped me so much. And the first two steps of your selling staircase could help those of us who use networking as part of a business growth strategy. It ties in so well with networking that I wanted you to come and talk about it. And then you can fill us in on the rest of the steps. Once the first two steps have been completed, then you want us to know how to actually put an offer in front of someone, which I think in networking, we're afraid to do sometimes because we don't want to be that person, that icky person that doesn't know how to sell properly. So we go the other way and we don't put offers in front of people when we should be. So
That's
you
right.
have great framework about that. And I'm just going to let you take off with your selling staircase.
All right. Well, you interrupt me and tell me where you want me to go deeper and all that stuff. So the selling staircase is my signature framework for a successful sales conversation. There are 5 steps in the selling staircase. And the reason I teach it as a staircase is because most people understand that when you're ascending a staircase, you go one step at a time. You don't start at the bottom and just hop up to the top. And you certainly don't say to somebody you've never met before, "Hey, stand at the bottom of the staircase and just from a standing position hop up to the top step,"
Mm.
because most people look at you like, "Hey, lady, you're crazy. I'm not going to do that because I might, bang my shins or I might fall or miss. But yet, a lot of times with the sales conversation, is people go right from this like first bottom step all the way to the close and they try to skip through steps. So that's why I teach it as a staircase, is because the objective here is that you go one step at a time. Now, just to be really clear, sometimes you can go through all 5 steps in one conversation, and other times, it actually takes multiple conversations and multiple touches to move somebody through a sales conversation successfully so that it feels good to the prospect or the buyer. And you feel confident because you know where you are and what you're supposed to do next. So it takes some of the pressure off of you as the seller to not be like, I just got to sell something, right? Which is, ugh, that's not going to go over well. Or the buyer who's like, I don't even know what we're doing or what we're talking about. So it allows it to unfold more naturally in a more authentic, genuine conversation. And of course, this applies to networking because many of us have built our business by going out and connecting with people and prospective clients. And we also have benefited from meeting incredible people who have helped us learn things, who have helped contribute to our businesses over the years through networking. And so you can apply these steps in every conversation. And if you know what step you're on, you know kind of what you should do or say next. And that's the whole point, is to give people a framework and also for them to understand anybody can be successful at sales. Anybody. Just like I think you would say, anybody can be successful with networking. It's just learning what are the steps, what are the skills. And when you can apply those, you can have success too. So it doesn't matter whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, it's really about structure. And my structure, this selling staircase, allows for people to show up and be their natural, like genuine, authentic self. I'm not trying to teach anybody how to sell like me. That's me putting it in quotes, because how I sell and how you sell might be very different. But when you understand, like, there's some structure here, there's some strategy, well, I can follow a strategy and still be myself. And then I attract the right people to me, the right buyers, and I can fulfill on for the people who have needs for my product or my service. So that was kind of the long overview of the selling staircase, just to give some clarity around it. And I mentioned that there are 5 steps. I'll go through them and I'll go in much detail as you want. I know you want to focus on the first 2, but just really quickly, the 5 steps. First is your first impression, right? And the objective here is to make a powerful first impression. And I call this step the introduction step. Step 2 is create curiosity. This is the most missed step in the sales conversation because most people don't even think. If you ask yourself right now, do you know how to create curiosity when you're talking about your business or the service you provide or the clients that you support? Most people will look at me like, "What now? What do you mean create
Mm.
curiosity?" And yet, at networking in particular, if you can't create curiosity, you often don't have deep, meaningful conversations and you don't attract your ideal clients. And you also don't let other people kind of understand how to even talk about you if they wanted to refer you. So you've got to learn how to create curiosity. Once you do that, oftentimes buying signals happen as a result. Buying signals lead to step 3, which is what I call discovery. Now, most people call these their sales or their consultation calls. I really don't care what you call it. I just care that you do it well. And the objective in the discovery is to understand the need the person has, to make sure that you have a solution that meets that need and to make sure you have permission to put an offer in front of them. And once those things, those three things are in place, you can move to step four, which is proposal. That's where you're laying out an offer. And then that goes very closely with step five, which is the close. And that's the second most missed step in the sales conversation. Most people might make it to step four, but they often miss step five, which is why they end up not earning the business. And they have a lot of people out there who are like, I thought that person was going to buy from me, but now they're ghosting me. What happened? Chances are you missed this step in the sales conversation. So those are the 5 steps, and you tell me where you want me to go deeper and on what.
Yeah, I think creating curiosity. There, you have a really nice way of doing it. And when we network, we want to find out about the other people. We want to ask them what their passion is, and we want to ask them they love about their job. But we also want to plant seeds. We want to talk about how clients work with us and tell stories. So, how do we create curiosity on our end when we are just in a networking conversation?
Well, first and foremost, when I think about creating curiosity, I always compare it to the difference between how you call a dog and how you call a cat. I know that sounds a little loony, so hang with me for a minute as I explain it. So, the idea of dog calling, we've all, like most people know, when you want to get a dog's attention, you kind of change your behavior. You change your voice, you change kind of your energy level. You do these things where you're like, come here, boy, come here, right? And dogs love that energy. They're like, oh, I don't even know why you're calling me, but I'm so in because I might get a walk or a treat or a bath or a ride. Like, I don't even care. I just know that you're calling me and I'm so in. Unfortunately, oftentimes when people show up at networking events, they have what I call this dog calling energy. They approach people like, oh my gosh, I looked at your website. You totally need to hire me. I could help you so much. And I call that dog calling energy. And people go like, oh, they push away because we don't like to be called like dogs, right? And I often refer to it as it's like word vomiting, right?
Mhm.
People word vomit on you sometimes at networking events, and nobody wants to be word vomited on. Like it feels kind of gross and icky. So that's where people can come off a little bit of salesy or aggressive. And really, what it is they're kind of skipping the steps of the selling staircase when they do that. So we don't want to have dog calling energy. And I do want to comment here because sometimes people go like, yeah, but Nikki, that's my natural, like that's just how I am. I'm naturally a dog caller. And I say, well, you're perfect because you are. You are absolutely perfect. And when you can start to add some tools to your toolkit, when you can start to add some flexibility to your behavior, you will broaden the spectrum of potential clients. So, this is just about doing something that's going to enhance your business and allow for you to make a bigger impact in the world. So, if you're naturally a dog caller, congratulations, you're perfect. And it's time to add a new skill, which is what I refer to as the cat calling. That is how you're gonna create curiosity. So when you think about calling a cat, you would never say like, "Come here, kitty. Come here, kitty. Come on, kitty, kitty, kitty." Right? Like cats would be like, "I'm running from you." And that's what people will do at networking events too. They'll be like, "How do I get out of this conversation?" So when you think about calling a cat, you do this thing where you go, "Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty." Now, the thing about cats is sometimes they'll come when you call them like that, and sometimes they'll just give you a look like, "What?" Right? Like,
Yeah.
they're not even sure yet, but they'll give you enough of their attention to, like, listen a little bit more. So, when you are out and about at networking events and you wanna create curiosity, you have to have what I call "here, kitty, kitty" responses to questions. So, this is you speaking. Now, this is just one way. I teach a whole course on creating curiosity and creating these here kitty kitty moments. But the one that I think that works the best at networking is think about how you answer a question. Now, some of these questions are kind of the ones that you just said, like what brought you here? Or, what are you passionate about? Now, you can have an answer, but you want to make sure that your answer is, I always say 1 to 2 sentences, 3 at the max. Because if you go over 3 sentences to a question that somebody you don't really know yet asks you, You go over 3 sentences, you're in dog calling mode, you're in word
Mm.
vomiting mode. So we wanna just give enough of an answer for the other person to pique their interest or give them a potential follow-up question. Because conversations happen when both parties are speaking, right? Like, you ask me a question, I answer it, and then I get to ask you a question and you answer it. It creates this, like, back and forth, and if you're the only person speaking at a networking meeting to somebody, they're gonna leave and go like, "Ugh, I'm gonna avoid that person next time," because they just talk, talk, talk.
Mhm.
So, how do you answer a certain question? You wanna think about, can you say something that allows the other person to ask a follow-up question? So, for you, this idea of like, "Well, what brought you to this event?" What could you say that would pique the other person's curiosity? Could you say something like, well, one of the reasons I came is because I've heard that there are incredible people in this room that could offer some potential resources as I'm building my business.
Ooh, that's a
Now,
really good answer. I'm gonna steal
wouldn't
that.
somebody be like, "What's your business?"
Yeah.
Because that makes sense as a logical next question. Now you have permission to talk a little bit about your business versus just saying, "Well, the reason I'm here is because I'm in business and I do blah, 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 and I wanna work with clients that are blah," and now you're in word vomit mode,
Mhm.
dog call mode, right? So we gotta just give enough of an answer for someone to go, "Oh, tell me more about that. I've got a follow-up question." That is where real conversation happens. And this is, again, I can go as much as you want on this, but that's like such a key is to be able to create curiosity.
Right. I actually saw, and I can't remember his name. He wrote a book, I think it's called Story Brand or something. And
Donald Miller.
yes, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, the reason why I learned about Donald Miller is because one of my referral partners in my BNI chapter, he's IT and he was a guest on my podcast. He sends out this newsletter every month and it's all about like cybersecurity and really good information in there. And then he's got this human interest or just something fun to know. And it was an article about Donald Miller. So the example he gave was he said, if someone asks you what you do, put the problem in front of them that you solve first. So, great example. He said, if you're a home chef and someone says, "Oh, what do you do?" You say, "Well, you know how families don't eat together anymore, and when they do, they don't eat healthy. I'm a home chef." I mean, is that not incredible? Because
I love that
now
answer.
now we're all picturing in our mind, oh, yeah, yeah. And they're picturing the soccer practice and the pizza and the chaos. And then we can more easily say, oh, but if I had a home chef, there would be less chaos and we'd be eating better. So you put the problem in front of them first, then you say what you do. And so when I read that, I'm like, I'm going to try that. So at a meeting, someone asked me, and this was after he had talked a lot about his nonprofit, because I always ask people first. So and he's, well, what do you do? And I said, well, you know how it can be hard to walk into a room full of people that you don't know and talk about your business? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, I help people do that better, more confidently. And I mean, his eyes, it was so cool. Like, this is
Yeah.
neat. But
Yeah.
things like that, like, let's have exciting, fun answers to a question you know you're going to be asked. So have a better answer than everyone else.
And, the other way to kind of prepare for this is think about what are the questions you're going to ask somebody? Because often, if you ask them the question, they will then pose it back to you. You
Right.
don't want to be the person who asks a really great question, a really great question, but then can't actually have a decent enough answer to pique somebody's curiosity. So think about before you go into networking meetings,
Hmm.
what kind of question might you ask somebody? Because chances are they're going to ask it to you in return. And you better have an answer that creates some curiosity that piques their interest enough to say, tell me more. I'm listening. I'm in. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to become a client, but if you're not able to create curiosity, I know for a fact you are leaving potential money on the table and you're missing out on working with some of your best people because they don't know. what's
Mhm.
possible for them with you. They don't know what you could offer to them, and they won't be interested to learn about it until it impacts them and gets their brain engaged.
Right, and that's why that example, you know how families don't eat together anymore, is so good because it puts a picture, and I tell people we only know a shadow of what people do, and often we have stereotypes. So that's another reason why that's a good approach because you hedge off that stereotype. So a realtor, you would want to think of a really nice, clever answer because people, as soon as you say realtor, now they just, oh, well, you just put a sign in the yard. That's all you do. And then that's not at all what they do. So if I were a realtor, I wouldn't want to say I'm a realtor before I said some other things, like ask a question. Well, you know how XYZ and XYZ in this problem? I'm the one. And so, and then for window cleaning, because I have the other business,
Yeah,
I thought about I could say, well, you know how when you look at your windows and you think about cleaning them, you just you'd almost rather do anything else except clean them? And then they would say, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And then I would say, "Well, I'm the person you call before you grab the Windex." It's just,
perfect.
oh, and then what's cool is when they the next time they see Windex, they're gonna think of me. Probably they're gonna think of me, unless it's like 6 months, 8 months later, but if it's the next day, they're gonna see that Windex and, "Oh, yeah, man, should I call Faithann or not?" And that's a whole whole 'nother thing, but they're gonna think of me because 'cause I've
That's right.
associated me with something in their house, you know?
Yes, I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. You've got it. You've nailed it.
Oh, well, I learn a lot, and that's why I love networking too, is because I learn so much from other people, and I learn about sales by taking your courses and going to your coaching calls because I just didn't know. And when I read that thing about Donald Miller, the first thing when I read that, I'm like, oh, that's that curiosity that Nikki talks about, just in a slightly different way.
A slightly different way, yeah, for sure. His approach is I love now again, what the example that you gave was you're being asked or you're somebody says like, "Well, what do you do?"
Mhm.
Right? And so it's like, okay, so how do you answer that question and that puts a problem in front of somebody? For me, it's often of like, how do you respond when somebody's asking you something that allows them to go, "How does this relate to me?" And what would be my follow-up question, which I think it works the same way. It's just thinking about, can you create curiosity? Can you pique somebody's interest to them to want to know more? And if you however you do it, by all means, like, congratulations. Now, I will say, I saw somebody one time at a networking meeting. I met her and she took it to an extreme. And I will say for me personally, I found it off-putting. So, with everything, there needs to be some authenticity to it, but also it shouldn't feel gimmicky. It
Mm,
shouldn't feel like I'm trying to trick you. And
mm,
she did this thing where somebody asked her, I think we were in a group of like 3 or 4 of us, and she had come over and they said, "Well, what do you do?" And she was like, "Oh, wait for it,
mm.
wait for it." And then she like whipped her business card out and said something. And I just remember feeling like, that feels so gimmicky. And now it doesn't really feel authentic. And it felt like she was kind of trying to steal the show and make everything about her. And in sales, it isn't actually about you. It's about the prospect. It's about what's interesting to them, what's useful to them.
Hi, listeners. Are you someone who struggles to make a great first impression when you meet others? Faith Ann has put together her guide to help you make a great first impression no matter where you are. This quick guide gives you simple tips to leave a powerful first impression, the first step to relationship building. Go grab this free resource today by clicking on the impressions link in the show notes.
Another kind of way to do this is to think about when somebody asks you a really broad question, like somebody will say, "Well, what would you tell people about sales, Nikki?" Like that's such a big, broad question. So I would probably follow up with them and say, "Well, what specifically about sales is interesting to you?" So that I can answer a question that's more tailored to that person. Because sometimes when people go, "Well, I tend to sell over email," and and I struggle with, my open rates, or I struggle with how to write those emails. Well, now I can focus on the way that I teach people and some of the specific techniques that I use that actually work. You had mentioned this in the email campaign that we worked on.
Hmm.
Uh, but if somebody says, well, I really struggle with my conversions, I'm spending 2 hours on consult calls. Well, now I can focus on why you can get your calls to 30 minutes or less and identify if you're talking to the right fit client and also plant seeds about your expertise, right? Like it gives me something to answer by asking them a more specific question. So that would be another kind of little technique I would throw in there for you people to be thinking about is
Right.
if somebody asks you a broad question, how can you give an answer that's more tailored to them? And the way that you do that is by asking a question of like, well, what specifically about it would be interesting or helpful for you to know?
That's great. That's worded so well. Do you think also, like, how are you is a really common question. And I think I've heard you say, no, you don't want to just say fine. You want to say, oh, I'm thrilled. And then you go into, no, I just finished my XYZ. I just launched this program. I just finished guesting on this podcast. Or is that a good way to answer that question?
Yeah. So again, the how are you question is a good way for you to start to build your curiosity creating muscle because it does take a little practice. So instead of saying like, "Oh, I'm fine. How are you?" That doesn't create any curiosity. That doesn't open the door for a conversation for somebody. So add a sentence that potentially piques some curiosity, right? So if somebody asked me right now like, "Nikki, how are you?" I would say, "Oh, I'm having so much fun. I just launched my 4th year of member appreciation."
Yeah.
Now, somebody would probably go like, "What is that?" Or "What does that mean?" Now, sometimes people will go like, "Well, that's nice. Here, let me tell you all about me," right? Like, so I always say in those moments, like, continue on with the conversation. Never stop somebody and be like, "Hey, wait, slow your roll.
It's my
I just
turn.
tried to create the curiosity and you're supposed to ask me this,"
Right.
right? Like, just keep the conversation going, but look for another opportunity to maybe plant another curiosity creating response in that moment, at some point when there's a lull in the conversation. Be ready with a how are you question because that's one you can practice anywhere at any time. And as a matter of fact, I really do walk my talk. So if I'm teaching something, I do it. So I don't ask clients to do things that I don't do. And creating curiosity is one of those things that it like I said, it's like building a muscle. So oftentimes I'll come up with my answer for the week. And
Mhm.
anytime somebody asks me like, how are you? I'll give that answer. Many years ago, went in to get my teeth cleaned, and my hygienist, first question, "How are you, Nikki? Have you been this last year?" Right? So I gave her my curiosity creating response for the week that I had, and at one point, she had her hands in my mouth cleaning my teeth, and she started giving me all these buying signals. Now, I didn't go to get my teeth cleaned thinking like maybe my hygienist needs a sales coach, but turns out she had a side business, and I piqued her curiosity enough that she wanted to know more about what it is that I do. She wanted to find out how to be on my newsletter so she could get my weekly sales tips. But that wasn't my intention. My intention was just to walk my talk, right? To create curiosity wherever I go, just to practice. So, if it's not something that seems natural to you, then by all means, start practicing. So, whether you're ordering a tea from your favorite tea shop and somebody says, "How are you?" Give them your response that creates a little curiosity. Have a little here, kitty, kitty in there and see what happens.
That's a great idea. At your coffee shop, give your kitty kitty answer so you can practice the words coming out of your mouth. Because
Yep.
if it's like the 18th time that those words have come out, it's going to sound better than the first time. And there's all this pressure, and you're at your networking
Yeah.
meeting, and like, oh, here, I gotta create curiosity, and there's like, ah. But if it's something you've said all week, and then now it's Thursday night and you're at a chamber event and someone says, how are you? And you rock and roll with that answer. That's a
Yeah.
great tip. It's a great tip. And it's fun to think of new things, new answers for that question.
Yeah. And speaking of my dentist office, they had this huge sign in the women's restroom when you went in there. And it was this big poster and it said, you don't have to brush all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep." And when I think about creating curiosity, I always say, like, you don't have to create curiosity with everybody you come into contact with, only the potential people that you would like to earn their business. That's it. So you don't have to do it everywhere. I don't do
Mm.
it on planes because that opens too much conversation. And I like to be really quiet on planes, right? So you get to pick and choose when you do this. But the more you build the muscle, like you said, the easier it is when you find yourself at that chamber event. It's going to roll off your tongue. It's going to sound more natural than you trying to, like, I'm trying to think of what to say in this moment. Like,
Mm.
have it practiced.
Practice, yeah. It's like I tell people to practice their elevator pitches. Practice
Yeah.
it, because if you don't, you're just going to ramble on and on and on. Or if it's terrifying, you're just going to stand up and say 2 words and sit back down. But if you practice, then you can make good eye contact with the room, and you're not using your brain power to think of words. You're using your brain power now to build rapport by looking around and smiling and noticing who's really tuned into you. Well, that person might be somebody I want to talk to when I'm done here. But if you're having to
Yes.
to compose on the fly, it's really hard. So I don't want to do hard things. I want to do easy things. So I'm going to practice before I go and practice creating curiosity. That's a great idea to implement
Thank you.
if you're networking on a regular basis, and I
Yeah.
recommend you do that. So,
Yes, by all means.
yeah, so as we wrap this up, I always ask the guests 2 questions. What do you not like in networking that you see people do, and what do you like when you network?
Well, okay. Did you say what do I not like first? Which one did you say first? Now
Either
my brain
way,
went.
it's up to
Okay.
you. It's up to you.
Okay. One of the things I find very off-putting is when somebody comes up and before they have my permission, start making suggestions on ways that I should change or why I should hire them. I always say it's kind of like somebody coming up to you and with a really sharp piece of paper and like giving you a bunch of paper cuts and then saying, "Oh, bless your heart, baby, you're bleeding. I sell Band-Aids." I'm
Mm,
like, I'm bleeding because you cut me."
mm,
So I really am off put by somebody who comes up at a networking meeting who says, "I looked at your website and you really need some help with your SEO and you should," and it's like, wait, you don't have my permission. You should not actually put offers in front of people until you have their permission. So that's important. One of the things I really do appreciate at a networking meeting is I appreciate when somebody goes out of their way to make me feel welcome,
mm,
especially when I'm attending for the first time. Not everybody believes this when they think about a sales coach, but I am a little bit of an introvert and I can be quite shy. So I find it intimidating to go into a room full of people that I don't know. And when somebody goes out of their way to make me feel welcome, oh, I just so appreciate that. And actually, I teach that in my networking course. I teach act as if it's your event, even though it's not. Act as if it's your event. And if somebody came into your home, you would want them to feel welcome. You would want to like, "Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. Who can I introduce you to or how can I help you get the most out of this time here?" Act like that and people it raises your credibility in the room, the person who makes other people feel comfortable and people will remember you. So, I really appreciate when someone does that for me.
I tell people that the distance between the registration table or the first person you see and where the action actually is in the room, that distance, it's like a valley to some people. It may
Yeah.
be, 6 feet, but to them it's a valley, and they're walking in the shadow of death through that valley. If they don't have a guide, like you said, say, "Oh, Faithann, yeah, I'm so glad you're here. I see that you help people network. Well, let me go introduce you to the business coach, or let me strategically introduce you to the most valuable person in the room." Just as a quick, what you think. I mean, you never know for sure who exactly, but you can at least try to find somebody that, or if it's like a roofer. Well, if a roofer visits a networking meeting, I'm going to go find the realtor right away, or the lender, or the insurance person, you know, just that extra touch of saying, "I want you to feel comfortable here." And I say, treat them like a VIP, every single
Yes.
person like a VIP, because you can't take it for granted that, your networking meeting is so awesome that just by the fact that they're there, they're going to like it. You have to make them like it. You have to make them feel welcome and comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. And when you extend yourself in that way, people will remember it. And again, like I said, it raises your credibility in the room when you're the person who's willing to extend yourself. Even if it's like you're standing in a group of people, you're having a conversation, and somebody seems to kind of like be on the outskirts. Open your body language, welcome them in, make eye contact with them. Don't just ignore them and pretend like you can't see them. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's my hypervigilance that I wanna know when people are around me and I wanna make eye contact with them and, have like, smile and welcome them in. But when I'm standing there and I just feel like, "Oh, people just think I'm invisible," like, that feels terrible. So, welcome people into the group. Even if you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody, welcome them in. 'Cause they'll remember that. Because the thing about networking is if you're trying to have a one-on-one, like, private conversation, you're doing it in the wrong venue.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
So
And I even talk about on my blog, I say, be the tour guide of every conversation you're with if it's more than one person. So let's say John, Mary, and Frank are talking, and John brings up something that only Mary knows. And then John and Mary just go down this rabbit trail. Here Frank is. And he's like, well, he's going to start looking for another conversation to go join. And it could be that Frank is your ideal client, but you're too busy talking this inside talk that Frank doesn't know about that he leaves. So be the tour guide of every conversation. And so you look over at Frank and you say, oh, what John's talking about is that time last week when I don't know, we did this thing and we had such a good time. And then ask Frank a question. Have you ever water skied? I'm talking about last week we went water skiing. Have you ever water skied? So that you pull them in and you keep them in as much as you can. Make them feel
yes.
welcome and important.
I love that you just said that. That is such a brilliant strategy. That's so Faith Ann, and oh my gosh, I love that so much. I've never heard anybody, like, frame it that way about the tour guide of the conversation. That is so brilliant. You are so brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Wow. It's something that Nikki doesn't know that I know.
I love it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I love everything you do. And where can people find you and where can they learn more about the selling staircase?
Well, okay, thank you for asking. I'm gonna wrap it around a gift for your audience, if that's okay. I
Absolutely.
have I have an ebook, it's called Closing the Sale, and it kinda touches on the 3 steps that we didn't touch on, that discovery, that proposal, and that close, and it's about building your confidence when you get to that place where you're having those sales consultation calls. So I'd like to gift it to your audience. You can get it by going to yoursalesmaven.com/ebook. That will be my gift to your audience. We will then be connected. You'll see on my website, you'll see all the other, books that I've written that are available on Amazon. But obviously, we've got some podcast listeners here, so I would encourage people to listen to my podcast as well. If you like the kind of strategies and tips that we've talked about today, you're going to get a lot more of that by checking out the Sales Maven podcast.
I love the Maven podcast. It is the podcast when people in business ask me about resources. It is the one I share the most. The most.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm teaching a class now on networking. And so I purchased a book for every person in my class, the Buying Signals book, because I was like, I got to do buying signals. And I'm like, what do I know about buying signals that didn't come from Nikki? Nothing. So then I'm like, I can't just talk about buying signals without giving you credit. And then I thought, oh, this is a great way to give Nikki credit and still be able to talk about it without feeling guilty. But oh my gosh, your stuff on buying signals is absolutely wonderful. So buy the Buying Signals book so that you don't miss dollars when you're networking. There's always a balance on what you should be putting in front of people and what you should be being curious about people and getting to know them better, because part of networking is providing opportunities for others. And that is a part that we don't want to forget. We want to be referring these people. When my grandma needs new plumbing, I want the plumber that I'm trying to get to hire me, I want that referral to go to that plumber or the CPA, So, but there's a balance of giving and receiving, and buying signals are part of, you can shore up that side of it so that you don't miss when someone wants to work with you. You want to recognize when that is, what they're doing and saying, and then what you do and say in response to that. I could talk about that forever. I know you could too. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with me. I really feel honored that you would do that for me. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so delighted to know you and to be in your network. And thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Oh, I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Networkers Tour Guide podcast with Faithann Basor. Share this episode with a friend and be sure to come back next week for more networking tips and tricks from the Networkers Tour Guide.